Hey guys, Ryan here, Fletch Deep TV. Thought I'd give you a quick introduction to saddle hunting since it's starting to gain a little bit of popularity, and I actually used it a little bit this year. I've mainly filmed out of it, but I did fill a doe from this as well. The main concept is, instead of carrying a tree stand that weighs anywhere from now about 8 pounds up to who knows how many, 20 pounds, depending on how cheap you want to go. You carry, instead of carrying that in, you wear a saddle, and hopefully you can see that here, but it's just a piece of cloth that cups your butt basically, and 2 pieces of webbing that are your main load-bearing straps. They come up to a bridge, as you can see here, and to your main rope, your tether that goes around the tree. So you hook this to the tree, everything's climb rated, so it's well above 4,000 pounds, and then you just put your feet down and hang. So it's a very compact, lightweight system. You can get into a whole lot of trees, but like I said, the main thing is the weight savings. I want to explain, you will need some type of platform. They do have a couple of commercial platforms now that are basically just small tree stands without a seat. They're just big enough for your feet. I'll try and zoom down here so you can see, but you will need something to stand on. And then there's either a ring of steps, which is just small steps around on a strap that you strap to the tree, and you can just work yourself around the tree and get whichever side of the tree you need. And that's one of the important things, is you can position the tree between you and the deer. So being able to walk around the tree helps a lot. I use 2 wild edge steps, and these are actually the knockoff cheaper versions of that. And you just tie these on. They're super solid to side pressure. I just put a decent space between them, and I'm able to move far around the tree as I want. And then you just have I have this simple strap. It's got hooks on both sides. My bow goes on my left side so I can grab it with my left hand since I'm right-handed. And then my backpack with the rest of my gear hangs on the back side of that strap. It's a really simple setup. I made this saddle myself. That is one of the pros, is if you are good at DIY stuff, you can get into this for fairly cheap. I don't know if you guys can see this, but because I did make it, I stitched in a commercial rock climbing harness. That way, if anything was to fail on my stitching or anything, I would be safe. I just had a second Prusik knot to my tether here, and then just take the slack out of that before I begin hunting. That way I'm always hooked up to that commercially made safety product. But let's head inside, let's get out of this rain, and I'll go over some of the pros and cons a little more in detail. Okay guys, now that we're back inside and it's not 35 degrees and raining on us, let's go over some of the pros and cons on the saddle hunting. Very first and foremost, the lightweight. It is an obvious pro that you're not going to get a tree stand set up that's going to be as light as a saddle. Mine, being homemade and having the rock climbing harness stitched into it with all my ropes and my strap for my bow hanger, all of that weighs just under 4 pounds. So that's huge weight savings over a tree stand, especially some of the cheaper steel tree stands. That's all my gear, safety equipment included, is under 4 pounds. So that's a huge advantage right there. For those of you that are going deeper into public land or just on your own private land that like to be mobile and set up different trees, it's a great option for you. If you do have private land though and you have some presets, personally I'm going to say with the presets. You can get in quick, quiet, and just set, and you're comfortable, and there's no reason not to if you have the opportunity. Secondly, another pro is you can hunt almost any tree. You can go to such a small tree that every time you move the tree shakes, and you can still be safely secured to that tree. And you can, if it has enough branches, you can decently hide yourself. The only trees you want to avoid is major leaning trees. Since gravity is always pulling you straight down, it pulls you into the tree at weird angles, and it's not comfortable that way. But almost any other tree, as long as you can get your rope around it, you can hunt it. Another pro is you can, like I said a little bit in that video outside, you can position the tree between you and the deer and effectively hide yourself. Now that doesn't help if you have deer coming behind you. If you were to try and swing around and hide yourself, then you're going to create too much movement. And we'll talk about too much movement a little bit later on. Another one of the pros is if you're good at DIY and you trust yourself with what you can make for DIY, you can get into this fairly cheap. Like I said, my setup being homemade with the rock climbing harness and all my ropes and carabiners is under $100. And finally, the last pro I'll list is safety. Because you're always hooked up, there's no chance of you falling. The only way you can fall is if your climb rated tether rope itself breaks. And those are rated at, most of the ropes we're using are about 6,000 pounds or so. So really, as long as you keep an eye on your rope, don't let it get super fuzzed up or frayed, I have no issue with trusting that rope. Like I said, you're always hooked up versus a tree stand where you are hooked up, but where you fall from the tree, you have that couple foot of drop. That's going to hurt. With the saddle, since you're hooked up tight, there's no risk of you falling at any measurable distance. So it's a little bit safer than tree stand hunting that way. Okay, now let's get into the cons. I know if you go to saddlehunter.com, they're going to tell you this is the most comfortable thing in the world. Personally, for me, I've got about a dozen hunts out of it. I'm not going to do an all-day sit in this thing. Give me a Millennium tree seat if I'm doing that. But for daylight to just before noon, yeah, it's manageable. It's not bad. The only issue is, for me, and this is kind of the second con, is to move and stay comfortable, you end up moving around a little bit. For me, it's a little more than I personally like. Versus the tree stand, you're really just either sitting and you just pivot your head, or you're standing and you pivot your head. There's really not a lot of movement. Versus the saddle, I end up swinging, and so that's creating a lot more movement than just pivoting your head on the tree stand. So for me, that's a con. And you'll see pictures of guys stepping all around the tree and pushing off platforms at super weird angles for their claim that they can shoot 360 degrees. And while I agree you can, what you're not going to find is a video of somebody actually doing that movement and shooting a deer. There's just way too much movement, and it's never going to happen in real life. So while you can theoretically shoot 360 degrees around the tree, it's not really practical. That offside shot is pretty hard unless you practice at it all summer. And let's be honest, nobody has time for that unless you're just one of the saddle hunter junkies. And this is just a small con for me, is since you're facing the tree actually blocks part of your view. Versus a tree stand, you set up to where you're viewing everything in front of you, so you have this wide field of view with nothing to obstruct your vision. Versus the saddle, you have the tree in front of you, so you kind of have to lean out to peek around. Just creates, like I said, a little bit more movement, which is my main complaint with the saddle, is it creates movement. Since you're only hooked up to that one spot on the tree, it's too easy to move. That's my main complaint. Another small complaint is to get your information on saddle hunting, you have to visit, for the most part, saddlehunter.com. And if you don't worship at the altar of John Eberhart and tethered gear, you're not going to have the greatest time. I mean, you can still find the information, but you got to wade through a little bit more now. Now that there are some commercial-made pro staffs and bro staffs going on out there. So that's just another thing to look out for. I mean, it happens to all forums, so part of yourself is used to it, but just another thing to watch out for. And last, another con, because there's not a lot of commercial options. The ones that are out there are expensive. You're looking at $300 plus for a saddle. I mean, it's right up there with the expensive tree stands nowadays. I guess the pro is you only need one versus buying multiple tree stands, and you can just carry the same one with you throughout the season. But for those of you guys on a budget, it's going to be kind of hard to push. So there you go, guys. I'm going to show you a quick doe kill video that I killed out of my saddle. So it is possible, and I will use it some more. I use it for film. Once I've killed my buck and I start filming some other people, it's great to get on the back side of the tree from the hunter, and that way you're facing the same way as the hunter. You see the same field of view, and it's a little easier filming. I will list that as a pro. It's a little easier filming out of the saddle because the camera's in front of you, versus on a tree stand you kind of have the camera around you, reaching behind you, so you have to aim it where you want it, and then you'd be drawing your bow and you kind of have to reach back and check that what you're filming is still in view. Versus with the saddle, because you swing your camera arm in front of you between your tether, or between the tree and the tether, it's always in front of you, so it's a little easier to check your screen when you're filming. So that is another small pro for the saddle hunting. But like I said, I killed the doe out of the saddle, had great footage, I was super pumped, everything turned out great until I got back and the batteries were dead in my microphone for my camera. So I have a completely silent hunting video. So I'll show it to you anyway. At least you get to see the lighted knock doing his business. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more from Fletch Deep TV, guys. So once I'm in the tree, I hang my HME gear holder. It has a couple hooks on it. I also have my GoPro strapped to that. That's what I hang my bow and my backpack from. Then we have our tether and our bridge. That's what's holding you up out of the tree. And then I set up my camera arm to my right side and swing it across me. Okay, so as this doe starts making her way towards me, my main focus is keeping myself positioned where I'm behind the tree, so it's blocking her from my view, or blocking me from her view. And so as she's moving, I just slowly start moving the camera around. I grab my bow when she's behind a limb, and now I'm just waiting for her to enter my shooting lane. I'll make one more adjustment to the camera here once she gets, and I focus it on a good shooting lane. And then once she steps into that shooting lane, I've got it pre-ranged, and as soon as she gives me just a little bit more of a broadside shot, I go ahead and take it. And as you can see, by the way she's running off, she's absolutely shot through the heart. Slick Trick did its job, put her down at about 50 yards, and that was it. That was all there was.